Star Trek Strange New Worlds Ep.7. Last week's episode had some fun stuff, and overall, my thoughts weren't the best. I thought the episode was just okay. So it's like, how is the next one going to go? They've been very good at doing their episodic stuff, but I'm still kind of just worried to see where we're going to head now, just because I'm like, okay, you're not bulletproof. You proved to me you're not bulletproof. What are we going to do next? So this week's episode came out, and I'm like, okay, what do you got? A lot of good stuff, actually. This was a strong episode, very interesting. Although I can understand some hesitation some people are going to have. Look, let's bury the lead before we get into it. We introduce a villain in here that feels like a recurring character. It's very much set up to be somebody we're going to be seeing down the line. I feel there's going to be a few people who don't like the direction this character goes or don't like the way that they are being portrayed. I can understand that. However, it's pretty much just an eccentric Q-like character. Not to the extent of Q with the omnipotent power, just a character who is very confident, very sure of themselves, and willing to do whatever it takes to just have fun and be crazy. It is a maniacal villain. She's interesting. I like what their direction is with them, so I'm on board for it. So is it going to be for everyone? Probably not. Did it hurt the episode? Not at all. I actually really like just like the slow build-up that we start off with this woman posing as I think it's Aspen, right? She poses as Dr. Aspen, and you're just suddenly seeing like, okay, she's working in this world. She was attacked by these pirates. She knows a little bit about them from what she studied, and as the episode progresses, we learn that she's the pirate captain, and this is actually Captain Angel. I think that's pretty cool. Thing about that is too, it's a pirate episode. This is pretty as simple a story could get. We have to save people from pirates, but it turns out the pirates were actually just like lying, and now we are attacked and the pirates took over our ship. Probably the most action-oriented episode thus far. Even last week we had a little bit of action, but this one was really just like, nah man, our crew's getting kidnapped, we're getting locked on a ship. It's very fun stuff, and it's actually a very interesting thing. Yet again, we're doing another episode dedicated to the Spock and T'Pring storyline, which is kind of fascinating. What I like about this one is that there's this implication that T'Pring is very interested in like the more human aspect of Spock. Essentially, it's spicing up their relationship in a way she wasn't expecting. She's reading human literature that talks about the human reproductive ideas and what people think about male love and female love in terms of humanity. And she's kind of into it, but Spock's like, yo, I think we're moving a little too fast. Let's just slow it down a peg before we actually figure out what we're doing here. I think that's kind of interesting. Again, the Vulcans, this idea comes up in the episode actually, where the Vulcans are suppressing the emotion instead of actually expressing them, and I'm like, that's kind of cool. The way Angel calls them out on it, like, yeah, you think that's what makes you Vulcan? It's like, nah, dude. Everything you're doing, everybody has emotions. You think doing your Kolnar, just like suppressing them is good? It's like, it's not healthy. It always comes out in weird ways. I think that's pretty interesting. It made for a very compelling story that I did like to see. Just fun seeing Spock in here because we're getting him a little more depth than I think I was expecting for the first season of this show. It feels like a character we'd have like more going on with later on, but it's like, no, I guess he actually does have a rich history and backstory we could explore, which I do like to see, so that's very interesting. Yet again, he asks for help from Nurse Chapel, and she's willing to give it, and okay, so this is kind of where I'm like, okay, because we know in the original series, which this is supposed to be before, but it's in its own timeline probably, we know it's revealed in some episodes there that Nurse Chapel says she has feelings towards Spock, and that could be, well, that's interesting in itself, but I think what this episode did in particular was really show there probably is the chemistry between there is the feelings between the two of them. When it's not explicitly saying those feelings, it does at some points, you know, there's like, well, they kiss, come on, let's just bury the lead there too. They do kiss in an attempt to get T'Pring not to come to the planet. I'm like, that makes sense, that's really fun. But it's also like a friendship, and I think that's kind of something that was overlooked in the original series, mainly because we didn't really give agency to some of the female characters, so that makes sense. But what they're doing here, if they are playing the long con with this story, and eventually it's going to be like maybe there is a history between the two of them, they're really establishing that Chapel might have feelings and is like, I understand where you stand in terms of the world and the person you're seeing, so I'm not going to get emotionally invested in you if you are not willing to get emotionally invested in me. And I'm like, okay, that's strong. But you see the quiet moments of Spock maybe thinking about getting emotionally invested, and that's where I'm like, that's brilliant. That is subtle brilliance that you're just shoving in here, which is just leaving it all on the table but not actually saying it's on the table. It's doing a great job with that, which was a very strong scene when they are kidnapped and there's like, well, T'Pring, you got a prisoner I want, so unless you bring him here, I'm going to kill Spock. And the gambit that Spock throws out when he's actually kissing Chapel, and you see the slow build up to the tension, it's actually a really drawn out kiss. And T'Pring doesn't believe there's any passion behind it, and she even calls him out later for it. Like, I don't think there's any way you could like be attracted to a woman like that. And just the subtlety of Spock not responding to that. That's where you go. There's some lingering thoughts in there. But look, it's a great kiss. It's a strong Star Trek kiss. If I had to put it up there with some of the best of the kisses in Star Trek, I'd say it's up there because it's passionate, it's story driven, and it makes sense for these characters. So I'm like, yeah, I'm on board for that. Good looking people kissing, I'm always on board for that. It's very fun. I like seeing that stuff. And again, their action sequences aboard the ship were very fun to see. I just love that everyone's got the phasers to stun, and nothing's really happening with that. You just see people get knocked out. Like, you're a pirates. Why are they on stun? Wouldn't you want to, like, kill the people you're taking the ship from? I don't know. That's just me. I just think that's, like, a really weird thing to do. And as that's happening, we also see the rest of our crew gets kidnapped, and they go aboard this weird ship planet thing. And this is such a weird sequence to me, but I'm like, this is fun. I thought it was really enjoyable. So the rest of the team, they're kidnapped, and Pike's trying to start a mutiny aboard with, like, the other pirates, because there's one there who's in clearly some weird makeup. Like, I'm okay with it looking kind of silly. There's some aliens there that have distinct prosthetics and stuff, but you just got a big guy and you made him green and you got his beard all red. I'm like, okay, that's not lazy. It's just distracting, especially with what we've been doing with the aesthetic in this show. It felt very classic as opposed to the modern style we're going for. It was just kind of a clash that I noticed, but I didn't hate it. So the pirates are kind of feuding. There's one that wants to start a rebellion, kind of be like, this is stupid, why are we doing this stuff? So Pike wants to start a mutiny while he's a prisoner, and I'm like, that's kind of fun, that's very interesting. A lot of this spurs from this idea that he's been called the Boy Scout, and I'm like, really? I mean, they haven't established that Pike isn't the Boy Scout, or that he is. He's done a lot of things against the book, so seeing him be called the Boy Scout, I'm like, is it really? He hasn't done everything by the book, but I get it. So I guess Kirk is the more rebellious one, so Pike could be the Boy Scout in that regard. But no, he's like, let's start a mutiny. I also love the sequence where all of, like, the pirates are complaining about the food they're eating, and Pike, just being the ultimate chef, is just like, I'll cook you something. Still wearing his battle armor, he also puts an apron on. Just a really thin, a really green apron. And I'm like, you got it, man. You know exactly what you're doing. You're a silly old goose, and I love every second of it. Again, the Anson Mount hair, it just ceases to amaze. It's beautiful. It's amazing. That whole sequence was just really interesting. It looked good, except for the guy that was just green. And then they start the mutiny. Like, the person gets the Enterprise team to help them. And then they hail Spock like, yo, your thing worked. We just overthrew this ship, but we're still kind of overthrowing it, so could you please beam us back up? And it's like, yeah, sure, let's do it. So I'm like, that's fun. That's good tension, good story. It's working really well. And again, this episode just had a lot of fun stuff working to it. It really felt like Spock Amok, which I think it's because it's a T'Pring and Spock episode that it felt like that. I just really like the way they're building up this relationship and how they're trying to work to better it, where it's not just like, oh, it's not working, we're never going to be compatible. T'Pring is actively exploring these ideas, and Spock needs to learn that it's not always about him, and sometimes you have to take just certain initiatives to get things going a certain way and feeling a certain way. You also have agency in your relationship, so if you're uncomfortable doing something, you don't have to do it. And Spock learning those lessons is kind of important. He's also learning the lesson he could fall in love with a human, which I'm like, that's really fun. And Captain Angel, she's just there to have fun, gallivant about, make everybody uncomfortable. Did a good job at that. Literally just leaves, and we might learn who the prisoner is that she wanted to take, which is a big callback to certain people If you're like me, and it's been slipping your mind literally since it was said, you probably forgot all about this guy, but they finally reference, again, I haven't watched Discovery, so maybe they reference it there, but they reference Sybok, Spock's half-brother, might be the prisoner that Angel is trying to free. We do see a glimpse of him from behind. Now, we don't see the actor who could potentially be playing Sybok, so if they cast him, I don't know. Maybe it's somebody we know. Maybe it's going to be Ethan Peck in a wig, but I doubt it. I think they're actually going to get somebody new to play him, which is kind of exciting, isn't it? That's a classic-ish character that people know and recognize. So I'm like, go for it, man. You go in there and do something crazy. I like it. Great action, great aesthetic, great writing. A really strong episode about pirates aboard a ship just trying to teach Spock a lesson about sex. How could you hate that? That's Star Trek. That's what it is. And it was really fun. And this episode did a lot of things I like, so I really dug it, and I think it's going to end on a high note these next 3 episodes. I think we're going to go out with a bang, so that's really cool to see, because this show has been nothing but spectacular, and this episode has been nothing but interesting. So that's going to do it for this review of Strange New Worlds. Now, thank you guys for watching this video. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And as always, I will catch you in the next one. Have fun. Stay safe. Good luck.